Anime wouldn't exist without this groundbreaking anime. In this video, I'm gonna show you 6 of the oldest ones that changed the entire industry. They introduced new technologies and ways to create and watch anime. From the introduction of voice actors to the first anime in color, each innovation is crucial to today's anime. You'll see rare footage that almost became lost media, starting with the dull sword. Imagine you found yourself in an antique shop, searching for hidden treasures. After some time, your eyes land on a particular object, and you feel your heart racing. You have just found a copy of Namakura Gatana, an anime that was thought to be lost forever. That's what happened in 2008 in Osaka. The exciting discovery was quickly sent to be digitally restored, and it was a success. The anime found was thought to be the exact same as the original by the experts. However, it turned out that they were completely wrong. This version is the second half of the original, with only 2 minutes found out of the 4. It was already very lucky to find this copy, but finding another one with the first half would need a miracle. And this is precisely what happened 6 years later. In 2014, the Japanese collector Yasushi Watanabe found the missing part of Namakura Gatana in a junk shop in Osaka. Now, thanks to him, we have the complete version fully restored. Let's take a look at what it is. Namakura Gatana is a short comedy about a stupid samurai. He's being fooled by a merchant and buys a dull sword. After some time, he's trying to figure out why his katana can't cut and attacks random villagers. He's not only dumb, but also very weak and gets his ass whooped every time. What makes this anime special is that it's officially the very first one ever made. Its creator is Jonichi Kochi, one of the 3 fathers of anime. Now, there are some debates with 2 other anime released around the same time, but they remain lost to this day. Kazuto Shashin is supposed to be as old as 1907, but it's only a 4-second animation, and therefore can't claim this title. What would be your reaction when seeing something that never existed before? Let's say you've just bought a ticket to experience a new invention for the first time. It's something you have never heard of, so you are extremely curious. You have already seen movies before, but you could never hear the colors. This is the exact same feeling a Japanese person in 1917 would have when watching an anime for the first time. They would have seen ukiyo-e before, but never in motion. On March 12, 1917, a group of people gathered at the Asakusa Kinamakurabu in Tokyo. They attended the projection of Imokawa Mukuzo Genkanban no Maki, or the story of the concierge Mukuzo Imokawa. But before you see what it looked like, we have to go back in 1901. Let me introduce you to Oden Shimokawa. After moving to Tokyo at the age of 9, he worked as a political cartoonist and as a manga artist until he turned 26. Then, his most important career opportunity arrived when Tenkatsu Production Company hired him to create a short animated film. Using multiple unique animation techniques at the time, he created the story of the concierge Mukuzo Imokawa and 5 other short films in 1917. Sadly, nothing has survived. We lost all trace of his work. Very little is known about its content, except that it was a 5-minute comedy. It is said that Shimokawa himself was disappointed by the poor animation quality. This is what we call a lost media, something that is forgotten or lost forever. There are videos claiming to be the story of the concierge Mukuzo Imokawa on YouTube, but don't be fooled, no authentic footage exists anymore. They are showing a clip of the beginning of Momotaro Umi no Shinpei, a World War II propaganda movie, but I'll talk about it later. Shimokawa stopped working when he had to deal with health problems and came back as a consultant in animation in the 30s. We don't have much more information about him until his death in 1973. Even though he had a short career, Oden Shimokawa became one of the 3 pioneers of anime by creating the very first anime publicly shown in theaters. How important do you think audio is for an anime? Stuart Craig, a production designer of Harry Potter, stated that sound is 50% of the movie-going experience. Until now, we've only seen silent anime so far. However, back in 1917, it wasn't possible to play sounds in anime. It wasn't until the 30s that Japanese started using new methods to synchronize sound with animation. First, after the visuals were created, voice actors will record their lines in a studio. Recording the dialogues after the animation is the Afuriko method and is more commonly known as dubbing. Then, they would add and mix sound effects and music to create the audio soundtrack. Finally, the sound will be synchronized with the animation directly onto the film strip. This final product was called a talkie because the characters could talk, the same way movies are called like that because of the movement. The first Japanese talkie, Madamu to Nyobo, released in 1931 and was a huge success. This inspired Kido Shiro, the president of Shochiku, a major Japanese film studio and entertainment company, to develop the idea. He then commissioned Kenzo Masaoka to make the first anime talkie. That man was very talented and earned the title of Japanese Méliès. It was not his first time creating an anime, but this one would be one of his most challenging works of his life. But he had a massive problem with the voice actors. The job simply did not exist yet, so he had to improvise and hire live-action stars to dub the characters of the anime. Roppa Furukawa and Naran Kurosawa were famous actors at the time, and they agreed to have Masaoka with his anime talkie. And this is how they became the very first anime voice actors, or seiyus, in Japanese. After a year of production, Masaoka completed the talkie in October 1932 and released it in theaters across Japan in April 1933. The anime is titled Chikara to Onna no Yo no Naka, or The World of Power and Women, and lasts around 12 minutes. And this is what it looks like. Unfortunately, this is also a lost media. We don't have any footage of that anime, but at least we have the plot. The story revolves around a man and his imposing wife, who has an unusual physique for a Japanese person. Despite having 4 children, the couple's relationship is strained, with the protagonist being abused by his wife. One day, he's having an affair with a typist at his company, but he accidentally talked about his secret while sleeping. His wife heard everything, and she went on to collect evidence of the affair. Then, she confronts her husband and the typist at his office. With Chikara to Onna no Yo no Naka, Kenzo Masaoka changed the entire industry with his innovations. It was the very first anime with voiceovers, and it started the job of voice actors. Many years later, Masaoka founded what became Toei Animation, the studio who created the Dragon Ball and One Piece anime. If you enjoyed the video so far, feel free to subscribe to my channel to learn new things about anime. Anime isn't just entertainment, it's also a weapon of war.
It's time for World War II.
In 1944, Japan suffered significant losses in the Pacific War and lost control of numerous territories they had conquered. Cities were bombed, the economy was in the toilet, and people were starting to question the government. In order to boost morale and divert attention from the descent, the Japanese Navy commissioned Shoshiku to produce an anime. The primary objective is to shape the public's opinion and maintain support for the imperial government. Before talking about this new anime, we have to go back 2 years earlier, in 1942. Japan was at its full power, expanding in the Pacific and showing naval and aerial superiority. In order to inspire Japanese people and demonize the enemy, the Navy Ministry ordered the production of Momotaro no Umiwashi, or Momotaro's Sea Eagles. This is the first time anime is used as a propaganda tool, a weapon of war. The director is Mitsuyo Seo, a talented animator and screenwriter who worked with Kenzo Masaoka on Chikara to Onna no Yo no Naka in 1932. Despite creating propaganda movies for the Japanese government, Seo is a leftist and a member of the Proletarian Film League of Japan. He was even arrested and tortured when the group was suppressed in 1931. Then he met Masaoka and worked with him until creating his own production company in 1935, before joining Geijutsu Eigaisha Studio in 1937. Momotaro no Umiwashi was produced in 1942 and released in 1943. Within 37 minutes, the anime is an adaptation of Japan's most famous and beloved folktale, Momotaro. In the original story, Momotaro and his animal companions travel to an island inhabited by demons who have been terrorizing people, and he manages to beat them. In the anime, Momotaro and the animals travel to Hawaii and fight the Americans at Pearl Harbor. We can clearly see the narrative of the Japanese military being portrayed as heroes defending their lands from the demonic allies. It was an extremely successful movie, especially for children, and it inspired the Japanese to fight against the allies and support the government. But the situation was different in 1944, and the next anime needs to be as successful as Momotaro no Umiwashi. It aims to be better, longer, and even more inspiring. Mitsuyo Seo has proved himself, and he will be the one to direct the new anime. They decide to create the sequel to Momotaro no Umiwashi, called Momotaro Umi no Shinpei, or Momotaro's Sacred Sailors. In the first movie, Japan's offensive capabilities were emphasized, but this time it will showcase the defensive efforts to repel the enemy. That way, the tone of the movie is changed from a preventive attack to a threat, to a heroic defense from the allied demons in the South Seas. Something to keep in mind is that Mitsuyo Seo is a reluctant propagandist and prefers to give dreams to children and hope for peace. Instead of glorifying war, he's showing the hopes and fears of the main characters in his movie. That's why there isn't much action, and the focus is on the preparations for the war. Like many propaganda films, all copies of Momotaro Umi no Shinpei were burned by the occupying Americans after the capitulation of Japan. All but one, discovered in Chochiku's Ofuna warehouse in 1983. It went just this close to becoming a lost media. finding that copy was very lucky, and now you can watch it online if you want to. The anime was finished in 1945 and released in theaters on April 12th of the same year. The movie is about a group of anthropomorphic animals in the Japanese Navy, who represents the Japanese soldiers. The story begins with the animals completing their training and visiting their families before going on duty. After a time skip, they became high-ranking officials and met the General Momotaro. While constructing a new airbase on a Pacific island, they are also teaching Japanese to the locals with the song A-I-U-E-O. Then, they receive the mission to invade the Celebes or Celebes Island in the Dutch East Indies. Momotaro and his companions are successful with their surprise attack, completely overpowering the British army and making the British officers surrender.
So I think it impossible to agree to a complete unconditional surrender.
The movie ends in an epilogue with children playing paratrooper, implying that future generations will potentially invade the USA. It was a colossal success, and it inspired many young Japanese people, especially one called Osamu Tezuka, but we'll talk about him later in this video. This anime is very special for another reason. It was double the length of Momotaro no Umiwashi, from 37 minutes to 74, and that's why it's considered to be the very first feature-length animated film in Japan. What people need after a war is an escape to real-life problems. 13 years after World War II, Japan is in a state of post-war recovery. The anime industry is in a transformative phase, and what happens in these years will change anime forever. Anime is not only targeted at children, but adults too, with new genres emerging like science fiction, fantasy, and romance. People are starting to watch anime to entertain themselves, and more studios are starting to appear. Do you know what would happen if one of the oldest animation studios and a major film studio decided to merge? That's what Japan Animated Films and Toei Company's animation division were thinking about, before merging in 1956. And this is how they create Toei Animation Company, who will become one of the biggest and most influential animation studios in Japan. With the animation techniques getting better, cheaper and faster, Toei's first major project will be something never attempted in Japan before. The first feature-length animated film, fully colored. On October 22, 1958, Hakujaden, or The Tale of the White Serpent, aired in the Japanese theaters. There were only 2 voice actors providing all the voices in this 78-minute anime. This is an adaptation of the Chinese legend of the White Snake, a love story between Shushan, a young scholar, and Bainyang, a white snake spirit. The movie starts with a child named Shushan being forced to abandon his pet, a white snake. Many years later, the snake transforms into a beautiful woman, and she tries to find her love, Shushan. They are finally reunited, but a local monk called Fahai believes she's a yokai, an evil spirit. He decides to banish Shushan from the village to save him from Bainyang. His pets, Panda and Mimi, go on an adventure to find him and bring him back. At the end, the white snake abandons her powers for love and becomes a mortal human. Bainyang and Shushan can finally be together, with Fahai accepting their relationship. This anime was a huge success and became one of the highest grossing films of 1958 in Japan. Toei managed to create a masterpiece for the first animated feature film in color and established themselves as a major animation studio. In 1961, the movie also aired in the US under the title Panda and the Magic Serpent. Combining anime and manga was one of the smartest moves ever. During the post-war recovery, the anime industry is not the only one getting bigger. Reading manga is becoming more and more popular. It is very affordable compared to cinema, and it's a great way to escape everyday life. With the increase of publishers, mangakas start to use new storytelling techniques that captivate their readers. One in particular becomes extremely popular, and he will later be known as a god of manga. That man is Osamu Tezuka, and he's about to change the manga and anime industries before turning 35. In the 50s, he wrote 3 mangas with new genres and themes at only 23 years old. Jungle Emperor, or Kimba the White Lion, is one of the earliest and most influential manga with anthropomorphic characters. Reborn no Kishi, or Princess Knight, is considered one of the very first shoujo manga, with the main character having 2 halves, one of a girl and one of a boy, from 1953 to 1956. And his most famous work, Tetsuwan Atom, or Astro Boy, is one of the earliest sci-fi manga, with the main character being a robot with emotions, from 1952 to 1968. These mangas are all very successful, and Osamu Tezuka has already become a legend in only a decade. But this is not enough. He wants more. Several years ago, he felt very inspired when he saw Momotaro Umi no Shinpei. He dreams of giving life to his own stories, and he might be able to. In 1953, televisions appeared in Japan for the first time. It got more and more popular, until one special event made this technology become absolutely essential. On April 10, 1959, Crown Prince Akihito and Crown Princess Michiko were celebrating their wedding. More than 500,000 people were attending the event, with an estimated 15 million people watching on televisions. Now that a lot of people have access to TVs, this technology's potential becomes extremely interesting, and Osamu Tezuka knew it was time, in 1962, to create his own anime studio, Mushi Production. His goal was to create a high-quality anime adaptation of his manga stories. Since they were already successful, it was a no-brainer to give them life on the screen. On January 1st, 1963, the very first episode of Astro Boy aired on the small screen. Just imagine being a child in the 1960s in Japan. The TVs are mostly broadcasting news and educational content. That's not very interesting. But one day, you happen to watch this. Now you can watch anime at home, and even better, it is a continuous story, and each episode will follow where it stopped. Astro Boy is an anime about a robot child fighting crime and protecting humanity against all kinds of threats. The series is set in a futuristic world, with humans and robots coexisting. Dr. Tenma, a brilliant inventor, manages to create the first robot with human emotions after the loss of his son. Atom, or Astro, has superhuman strength and can fly, and becomes the symbol of hope for the country. The anime addresses complex themes like robot discrimination and robot rebellion. Astro is going to face powerful villains like Atlas, his own father Dr. Tenma, and the strongest robot on Earth, Pluto. I've made a video about Astro Boy's alternative story on Netflix called Pluto. It's pretty great. The series was an instant hit, and its popularity kept growing with new episodes coming out every week. And it did for 3 years straight, for a total of 193 episodes in 1966. But Astro Boy isn't actually the first anime series. It's Otogi Manga Calendar, or Instant History, an anime with characters learning about historical events. It aired in 1961 and had a massive number of episodes, around 3 to 5 minutes. Almost everything about this series has been lost, but I managed to find this footage.
まとめてあり、1月1日から毎日起こったことを紹介していく日めくりカレンダーのような作品でした。
Astro Boy is very different, because it has elements that made the foundation of what an anime is today. You can see very familiar concepts like an opening, an ending, a story based on a manga, continuous episodes about 25 minutes, and of course fight scenes. It is the most influential anime series ever, and it popularized the medium internationally. It was broadcasted in the US shortly after its debut in Japan, and was a massive success. Now the only thing left is color, and we'll have to wait until 1965 for a new anime based on Osamu Tezuka's manga, Kimba the White Lion. This is the first anime series in color. Knowing about anime's history is pretty cool, but do you know how much does a massive series cost? Have you ever wondered which anime has the most budget, or how expensive one episode can be? In this video, I'll tell you the difference between a $1 anime versus a $100 million anime.